Hello, my name is Patrick Maniak and I'm a professor of literacy education at the University of Wyoming. I'm going to demonstrate the long word reading activity, Syllasearch. As students learn to read, move beyond the beginning steps and beginning reading text, they quickly encounter longer words. Polysyllabic words that are made up of multiple syllables, or multimorphemic words that are made up of several word parts put together, a prefix, a word root, or base word, and perhaps a suffix as well. Now, these words present a new challenge to young readers. You do not read a lengthy polysyllabic word like conversation in the same way that you read a simple single syllable word like man or hat. We do not make the sound for each letter in the word when you have a word like conversation and try to blend them together. That would not be possible and certainly would not be efficient. What we know about good readers reading long words is that they process the words in consolidated chunks. A chunk of the word, typically a syllable or a word part like a prefix and a base, actually function kind of like an individual letter. They process the letters in that chunk in a consolidated fashion and then in essence blend the chunks to read the word. Now, for strong readers, they may move from the beginning reading of single syllable words into reading longer words naturally. But a large number of students will need support as they move from reading simple single syllable words to reading longer words. And certainly students who are struggling readers or dyslexic, this presents a new challenge and we need instructional activities that support them in taking on this challenge. Okay, that is where an activity like Syllasearch comes in. Syllasearch is a very typical long word reading activity. It's focused on learning to process the syllables in words, is to recognize them, to read them as a consolidated unit, to read longer words. Okay, Syllasearch has 3 steps. It's a very simple activity to do. The first step is meeting the words. Okay, so I have a set of polysyllabic words here. These are all 2-syllable words, but you could go on to 3, 4-syllable words. And I might do this, I could do this in a whole class setting. I think frequently it's done in a small group setting, anywhere of 2 to 8 students, let's say, or it could of course be done in a one-to-one tutoring situation. Okay, and meet the words, I simply hold the word cards up and I ask the students to read them with me. So we get familiar with reading the words, and I might use this opportunity to explain the meanings of words that I think are unfamiliar to students very briefly, because the point is really to focus on the word reading and not so much on the meanings. Okay, so I would say to students, let's meet the words. Our first word is perhaps. Read it with me. Perhaps. Again, I might feel like that is somewhat unfamiliar, so I could say very quickly, students, perhaps means that you might do something. It means it's as similar to the word maybe. I might say, are you going to go to the store? Perhaps, maybe. Okay, here's the word person. Read it with me. Person. We'll go through these quickly. Lesson. Read it with me. Lesson. Package. Read it with me. Package. And so forth. We're going to get to the end. Here's the last one. Here's the word action. Read it with me. Action. Great. Okay, now we've met our words. In essence, we've practiced reading them. We've become familiar with them. Now we go back to these words and we do step 2, which is find the syllables. So I will say to the students, all right, remember this word? This was the word perhaps. First syllable in perhaps is per. Who can tell me what letters are making that syllable per? The student will contribute PER, Mr. Maniac. Say, great, absolutely. Okay, then I'm going to put the PER, I'm going to put them on the table in front of us for this demonstration. Typically, if I'm working with students, I would have a pocket chart hanging on a chart stand or on the wall behind our table and have them lined up in columns that students could see. But we're just going to use the table in front of me right now. And I should say, students could also have their own syllable sets, and they could be making a first syllable column, second syllable column as well. That would add to sort of the every student participates nature of the activity if, say, this were a group of 6 or 7 students. Okay, we go back and say, okay, how about the syllable haps? Who can tell me what letters make the syllable haps? And somebody's going to say H-A-P-S. I get great. Here it is right here. And now these are going to form a second syllable column. Okay, we're going to go through, we'll go quickly here. Person, who can tell me the letters in the syllable per? And again, P-E-R, and I go, great, I point to it. We already have that one out. How about the syllable son? And somebody's going to say S-O-N. So I get that out there. Now, I'm going to move ahead here, and we'll get some of these out without going through them. We have lesson, so less and son. We have package, so I'm going to get pack out. And we have edge out. And we have storage, so I need the syllable store here. And I'm just making first syllable column, second syllable column. Now, when I get to motion, I might slow down. Go, okay, who can tell me what letters are making the first syllable in motion? Mo. And someone will tell me M-O, and so I get that out there. Now, how about the second syllable shun? Someone says T-I-O-N. I go, great. Now, I may want to pause here because, of course, T-I-O-N is not regular in terms of its phonics pattern. It's a word part that's taken from, that we've borrowed, that has this kind of special or unique pronunciation. So I might call the students' attention to that because they're going to see shun in many words, and if they try to sound it out in terms of phonics, it's not going to work. So I'll call their attention to it. Great job, it is T-I-O-N. I want you to look closely at this one, okay? Because it is a tricky syllable. It does not work in terms of sounding out. It sounds like this, shun, like we hear in motion. So it almost sounds like we have a SH and UN here. This is one you're just going to have to remember. Take a look, T-I-O-N, shun. How do we read this? Shun. Great. Let's remember this, and we'll keep reviewing that because you're going to see it in a lot of long words that you read, and you want to be able to recognize it as shun. Great, I'm going to put that in my second syllable column. All right, and our last word, action. What is making that first syllable act? And they tell me AC. We come back to this, how about the second syllable shun, T-I-O-N? I very quickly take another opportunity to review that special letter pattern. That's right, so just like motion, we hear shun, like this was an SH. It is the T-I-O-N. That is this letter pattern is making shun. Great. All right, we found all the syllables, students. Now it's time to make the words. So now we have a first syllable column, a second syllable column. Again, this is usually in a pocket chart. Now I can call on individual students. Again, if the students actually have their own syllable set in front of them and they've set it up just like this, they can each be doing this for each word. And I can move kind of quickly and say, okay, who can come up and make our word perhaps? Take a syllable from the first column and the second column and make our word perhaps. Okay, so a student comes up and they find this, great, and they put it in the pocket chart next to our syllable columns. Great, what word did you make? Perhaps. All right, everyone read it. Perhaps. Super. Now we put those back because we're going to need these syllables, but I'm going to go ahead and use my word card and start to list the words again that we've made. All right, who can come up and make the word person? Okay, once again, a student comes up, and if they have their own syllables, they should be finding them. And okay, what word did you make? Person. Great. Everybody read it? Person. All right. I put them back, and I'm going to go ahead and make this list. So when we get to the end of making the words, we can once again review and read them down. So we're going to go like that in similar fashion. Somebody's going to make each of these words by taking the syllables out of their columns and putting them together. Great. I can say, great job. We've made it to the end. We've made all the words. Let's go down and read very carefully. Let's use those syllables. Read those syllables as chunks. What's our first word? Students read. Perhaps. Great. Second word? Person. Great. Third word? Lesson. And so forth until we read through the words. That is the activity Syllasearch. There's some little variations we could use in this. Instead of actually telling students what word to make, I can ask them to simply come up when we're at this stage of making words, come up and make one of our words. So it's less directive, and the first student could come up and make motion, let's say. Great. Or we've at times actually challenged students to make their own silly word or nonsense word by taking a first syllable and second syllable, and they have to be able to read that word. And sometimes we even say, tell us what it might mean if it were a word. So in that case, a student might come up and put these two together and say, okay, I made the word Paxson. Okay, so it's still reinforcing the idea of reading, in this case a non-word, but reading them in consolidated chunks. So that's a person that packs packages. Great, that's a funny one, good for you. Okay, because someone else comes up and says, this is the word lessage. Great, again, we don't do this a lot, but it's kind of a fun alternative for kids, and it still reinforces that idea of reading by syllable in the consolidated chunks, right? And that is the activity Syllasearch for supporting students to read long words.